There are so many great performances this week. As a matter of fact, there are too many to actually fit into a top five performance graphic. So many great games, too. And you know what? I have even seen a score in college football that I have never seen before in my life. And really, at 54, that's saying something. I've seen a lot of college football. Welcome to college football this week. I am Joey McWilliams. It's good to be with you tonight. I want to say before we get any farther along, you're awesome, and I'm glad you stopped by the channel tonight. I want to get things going with a guest as we talk a little bit about our games, and it's been fun this season to get to bring in some of the voices of teams around the country, and one of those voices happens to call for a team that is currently undefeated, and they're not showing any signs of anywhere coming near a loss. Pat Strathman, who is the voice of the Friends Falcons. Pat, thank you very much for taking some time to get to visit with us tonight. Really quickly, there's a good thing going on in Wichita right now. And you come away with another victory this week, a win over Tabor, this time 59-15. You didn't make it into the 70s and had only 415 rushing yards. First off, talk about the win this weekend.
Joey, great to be with you. And yeah, you bring that up. You don't break the 60s, you don't break the 70s, and yet this is a team averaging 64 points per game, number one in the NAIA. So they're obviously still doing things right. And on Saturday in Hillsboro, I was really curious to see how it would go because Mike Gardner, I have such respect for him, the head coach of the Tabor Blue Jays. He's been doing it for a long, long time. And he's going to throw in some wrinkles. And Terry Harrison and the coaching staff knew that going into it. They knew that they would have to be at a very high level in order to take down this Tabor team. And the next thing you know, they scored 28 points in the first 5 minutes of the game. And you're like, okay, well, that was easy. And they did it in all facets with the defense, with special teams, being able to run out of the flex bone. They did it with everything. And that's really just been the story of Falcon football in 2025. They brought back so much from the offensive side of the ball that you had a feeling that they would be pretty darn good. And turns out they are. They are very, very good defensively. Last year, they took some huge strides last year, going from a team that didn't have as many sacks as they would like to being number one in the country last year, to being number one in the country this year with 22 sacks already. And then special teams wise, you've seen just how special that group can be as well. So they are playing what they say complementary football. They are doing pretty well so far here in 2025.
They absolutely are. And I appreciate you bringing that out because, Tabor, I think is a very good team, especially for a record that's 1-3 now. But I do think that they have a good thing going on there. But Friends absolutely took care of business. All right, I mentioned only 415 rushing yards, and obviously, there's a little bit of tongue in cheek there. But still, this is a program that right now in 2025, you got to love this round number, Pat. 2,000 rushing yards. 2,000 even rushing yards, which means the average is an even 500. It's an amazing number.
Truly is amazing. I don't think Terry Harrison and the coaching staff probably planned it that way through the first 4 games of the season. But right off the bat, you saw in game number 1 where they racked up 695 yards of offense. They put over 70 points on the board, a school record in the very first game against Bethany. You had a feeling, okay, this team would be special. And we all know where it starts. You have Cavante Baker at quarterback, Wichita's own, who just continues to just be spectacular and an incredible story. A guy who never thought that he would probably play college football again after a not so great experience at the junior college level. And he winds up getting a phone call from Terry Harrison. He thought, you know what? We won some games when I was 15, 16, 17 years old. I don't mind winning football games. Let's do it as a collegiate player there at Friends University. But it's not just Cavante. I think the beauty of the Friends offense is seeing how balanced they have become. 2 years ago, when Cavante led the country in rushing touchdowns and was the KCAC Player of the Year, it was basically just Cavante. And no offense to the other guys that were around him, it was just Cavante. These last couple of years, you've seen balance. You see a loaded B-back group that has just been terrific with Nick Cordova, who's a KCAC first-teamer last year. And the only thing I heard about in fall camp was EJ Sykes. I'm like, hey, you're forgetting about an all-conference first-teamer, Nick Cordova. Like, what do you mean, EJ Sykes? Then you see EJ Sykes, you're like, oh, okay, that kid's pretty good. And then you see a former May South Maverick who was at Kansas State, decided to come back home. Evan Cantu's part of that B-back group. And then you look at what they have with the A-backs. Mikey Lopez, a local product out of Northwest High School. Elias Pino's back for another year. Judd Cheatham, Jet's younger brother, is a part of that group.
Mhm.
Jace Martin has been. I tell you, Jace Martin is a pretty darn good slot back for what they have. And then offensive line wise, of course, they've been loaded up front as well. So it's a team that knows its identity, and they knew their identity going into the season. And now it's up to opposing defenses to stop it. And so far, no one has been able to slow down the Friends Falcons. Though I would imagine Evangel will have something up their sleeves coming up on Saturday at their Austin Stadium. But in terms of running the football and executing, this team's doing it at a very high level on the offensive side of the ball.
Okay, I don't want to stick around too long on this one, but were you a little bit unhappy to see Evangel coming up with a loss? Because they're going to be fired up now.
Well, they were going to be fired up regardless, because keep in
Yes.
mind with what happened last year
Yeah.
as well. Friends had some really close calls last year. I'm sure once we get into the division play, you're going to see Southwestern and
Mhm.
McPherson. They're going to be a little bit ticked off for what happened a season ago. And with Mac going on the road to Springfield and taking down Evangel, I think that's a huge wake up call to the rest of the division. Like, hey, is Mac really that great? They are. Jeremiah Fiscus has always had the talent up there. I think they put together a really nice team. But yeah, coming off a loss, uh, I don't think Terry Harris is going to get caught up in that. I think he understands that win or lose, they got to go out there and be the best version of themselves. And I can't wait. Should be a great game on Saturday.
You dropped a lot of names on the offensive side of the ball, and they're all familiar. I wind up spotlighting Cavante Baker so often here as we talk about stats and just dropping a lot of numbers, but there's so many other players there, and that offensive line is fantastic. But I want to ask about the defense, because the offense gets so much of the hype, and rightfully so. I don't think there's any question that it deserves the hype it gets, but it's a defense that's really stood up and made some noise too. Tell us a little bit about the defense for the Falcons.
How much time you have? Because the defense, offensively, they have a lot over there, right? Depth chart wise, they're very deep. Defensively, when you see my charts, I go about three deep on every position, because that's how many players that Paul Kemp uses on the defensive side of the
Yeah.
ball. It's scary, but it's important to note that in order to be a good defense, especially in the KCAC, you need to be deep. You need to have the ability to remove a piece or two to keep the legs fresh and to see no drop off. I think their linebacking core has really been a revelation. The last couple of years, last year, they brought in Marquise Willoughby, a former McPherson Bulldog, and you saw how much better that group got. But a couple of years ago, when Coach Harrison was just getting this thing started, linebacking wise, there wasn't much there. And now you look at the group, you have Andrew Arnold, a former quarterback who converted to linebacker. He's the one that got a pick six on Saturday, by the way. Andrew Arnold, you see the way that he's been playing. It's been insane to see how good of a linebacker he's become. They have a young kid, a local product in Tyson Wallace, who has been exceptional as well. In the back end, they lose guys like Braden Gordon and Nolan Ewing, guys who have been a part of that secondary for years, because they have Brock Zerger and Tavi Agnew, who's been great. They just continue to bring in guys, and then up front, you got to play with that aggression. And here they are adding Jairo Castillo, who played at Bethel a couple years ago and had to sit out last year. Now he's been really, really good. You can check out Barrett Rhodes, who's a campus Colt out of Hayesville, Kansas, and he was a KCAC first teamer last year. Secondary wise, Casey Lehman's been incredible. He was a great freshman last year, and I could go on and on. I'm telling you, Joey, I can spend the next 20 minutes going through the roster, because I know I'm leaving some people off,
Yeah.
because that's how deep they are. They don't. They're not number one in the country in sacks for no reason. It's because everyone does their job. Everyone gets after it, And across the board, it's been amazing to watch them because we knew offensively a couple of years ago they'd be pretty good. Last year, offensively, we had a feeling they'd be good. But in order for them to go from being good to being great to being a team that can win at the national level and take the eventual national champions Grandview to the wire last year on the road, the defense had to step up. And the defense there last year and defensively this year, they're off to a magnificent start.
All right. Well, I want to recognize first all the folks who are already in the chat and already watching tonight. So shout out to everybody, and we're going to get to your teams really quickly. But as we have another voice of NAI football on, I have to ask one final question. Okay, I have mentioned almost on a weekly basis, I believe on a weekly basis, the Terry Harrison factor is a real thing. Would you be able to back me up on that statement?
100%. And I've been in the KCAC. I'm old, Joey. I've been in the conference now since 2016. So this is what, year 8 for me, which is crazy to think. But I've seen Terry Harrison up close and in person, and to watch what he did at Bethel and to take it from North Newton down to Wichita, it's been magnificent to see. But the Terry Harrison factor is real. When guys talk about the brotherhood, people can say brotherhood, family, but sometimes it's only surface level. When it comes to Friends University and Terry Harrison, it is a whole nother level. It is truly a deeper thing. It's the tip of the iceberg. You just hear brotherhood, but it's way deeper than that. Coach Harrison cares deeply about his players. The entire coaching staff does. And I think that's why it clicks. I think that's why it works so well in the city of Wichita.
All right. Another game coming up this week. We alluded to just briefly Evangel and Friends. That is coming up next Saturday. So where do the folks go to listen to your side of the broadcast? How will they tune in?
Well, you can go to friendsathletics.com. Good place to start. You can also check out the KCAC network. And I will say, a humble brag, I like to think that we have the best on broadcast, not only in the conference, but in the country because of the fine folks at KCMC Sports. I got to give them a major shout out. They were brought on last year. They'll give you angles from sidelines. Coach Harrison will do like a little like fist bump while he's on the sidelines with those guys, which is funny as heck. They get drone shots. I absolutely love it. So if you want to just come check out the sites, probably don't need to listen to the sounds because let's be real, I'm not very good. But if you want to check out the sites, you can definitely catch it on friendsathletics.com.
All right. And by the way, Pat, when you start saying that, 8 years in broadcasting the KCAC and you're old, listen, this is year 25 of radio, television, internet broadcasting in the booths and on the sidelines and everywhere else. So, and my hairline's a little different than yours. That's all right. Pat Strathman.
Notice have the ball cap on there. That's what you said. There's a reason why the ball cap's on.
Good camouflage. Pat Strathman with the voice of the Friends Falcons. Thank you very much, sir, for stopping by tonight, talking about Friends, the football team, the Falcons under Coach Harrison, 4-0 to start the season, and a big matchup coming up, KCAC crossover on Saturday. God bless you, sir. Thanks a lot. Thanks for being with us.
I appreciate you, Joey. Thanks for all that you do, and looking forward to seeing you in Wichita here before too long.
It will be right around the corner. The plan, November 1st. We'll see you then. All right. I'm going to let him go. And what a great guy. And he does have a great call. He's being very humble in that, but he does have a great call. I've listened to it, and I think he does a fantastic job. So shout out to Pat and to the folks at Friends. All right, really quickly, then let me get on this, and let me see here. Matt, obviously talking about the Mets, and they roll. The Comets roll tonight. D'Angelo, Arkansas Baptist, a new team this year, and a shout-out to them again. Dave, Roll Stangs, of course, and they did just that this week. Leo, looked for the rerun of Friends, but haven't found one yet. Well, that's tough to find sometimes, so I don't know if I know exactly where that is. You know what? I probably should have asked. That's okay. If I find something out, we'll let you know at least by Thursday's show. Charles, Graceland, big win and big play from that quarterback position as well. And then Tula, it'd be good to see you coming on tonight. Friends becoming a problem for the rest of the NAIA. Got to watch them up close in the playoffs last year in Des Moines. They're the real deal. And yeah, that game against Grandview last year, that was as close as anyone got to the Vikings. So, big deal there. Arkansas Baptist just beat Texas College 2-2 this season. Yeah, they're looking good. And you know what? I thoroughly enjoy getting to visit with the coaches there. I think Coach Wilson does a great job, and I always enjoy listening to him and visiting with him. All right, let's get into what we're doing today. We have the full lineup. We're going to talk about at least a little bit about every game on the docket in week 4, and we have our top 5 performances, and there just was not enough room for all the solid performances. We had to pick 5, and because that's the size of the graphic, so that's what we're sticking with here. Also, we'll talk about the outcome of our supposed bets in Bet the Barn, where it's all about the pride and the bragging rights. Obviously, no money exchanged, but we are still talking about that segment. And I went 2-2. We'll tease it with that. Some of the others of you that were in on that, it was a tough weekend, and it was that Evangel McPherson game that did it. That was the one. All right, we mentioned Friends and Tabor. Let's start right there. 59-15, Friends over Tabor. The Falcons go to 4-0. Jace Martin, well, Pat talked about him. He had a 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown to open the game. Cavante Baker, 6 carries for 110 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, of course, for Tabor. Rough day, but I think that it's a great program there. It's one of 2 teams, I think, with you look at that record that's 1-3. Wow, they could really easily be more than 1-3. Tyson Dozier, 7 catches, 69 yards, and 1 receiving touchdown for the Blue Jays. St. Thomas, 26-7 over Georgetown as the Tigers come up with their first loss of the season. St. Thomas now is 1-1. Georgetown won last year, 27-21. It looks like the Bobcats found some measure of vengeance. St. Thomas up 17-0 at the half. Georgetown had 3 interceptions and lost a fumble as well. So turnovers not kind to the Tigers there for St. Thomas. Keely Watson, 21 of 41 passing, 213 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Garrick Slunaker, 15 of 29 for 188 and 1 touchdown, had 3 picks, though. We talked about those. So a tough outing for Georgetown as the Tigers fall for the first time in 2025. Southeastern, undefeated, still 26-19 over Faulkner on the road there in Alabama. Southeastern trailed 16-13 at the half and had a game-winning drive after Faulkner tied it up 19-19. That drive was culminated with a 59-yard touchdown pass from Nate Michael to Dathan Davis, and that was proving to be the game winner there. Southeastern's Thomas Ibrahim, 8 tackles. They were all big. 2.5 tackles for loss, and of those 2 were sacks. The Fire are now 3-0 on the season. Kaiser also 3-0 after, well, taking care of business on the road at Cumberland's. 42-12, the final there, as the Patriots come up with their first loss of the season as well. Had a big segment on the Thursday show about how good the Mid-South was looking against non-conference opponents. Well, there were a couple of losses that were racked up this week. Kaiser went up 21-0 in the first quarter. And the Seahawks on defense, it really was all about the defense here, tied a program record with 14 tackles for loss in this one. Malik Raz led the way, 9 tackles. He had 3.5 tackles for loss himself. Shea Spencer, 19 of 30 passing, 222 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and a pick. Dallas D'Souza, 4 catches for 42 yards. He had a couple of touchdown catches as well. For Cumberland's, Drew Gregg continues to have a solid season. The numbers, at least passing yards, down just a bit. 24 of 39 passing for 173. Had a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown as well. Kaiser with the victory, 42-12 over Cumberland's. Bethel, we finally get to see the Wildcats play against an NAI opponent, and Bethel picks up the first win of the season. Now 1-2. Of course, one of those was that weather forfeit last week. 24-7, Bethel over Weber International as the Warriors fall to 2-2 on the season. Destin Chance, I know I've talked about that name 2 or 3 times, probably more than that. I think he has potential to do things solid for the Wildcats. 21 of 26 passing, better than 80% completion for the day. 198 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. And for Weber, Blake Birchler, 12 of 23 passing, just 111 passing yards, 1 touchdown on the day. Campbellsville continues to roll. The Tigers are now 4-0 with a 61-7 victory over Thomas, and the Nighthawks fall to 0-4. Campbellsville scored double digits in all 4 quarters of the game. Jet Engel continues to roll at the helm for the Tigers. 19 of 24 passing, a little better than 80% there. 225 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. And all of that happened in the first half. In the second half, Trenton Cutright came out, and he just got things going. By the way, I was thinking about this particular game as I was on the road this weekend, and I stopped. We mentioned that we were going to be visiting my grandson, and one of my grandsons had his first birthday this weekend. So we went to a birthday party, and it was all about Bluey. If you're familiar with Bluey, there was so much Bluey going on. But I remember when I was young, it was about Sesame Street. And I remember the broadcasts were brought to you by letters and numbers. Well, this particular recap is brought to you by the number 6. Jet Engel threw touchdown passes. So did Trenton Cutright. As a matter of fact, between the two of them, they threw 6 touchdown passes. Also, when you get a touchdown, you get 6 points. In the words of the near immortal John Ward, the great broadcaster for the Tennessee Vols, every time the Volunteers would score, he would say, "Give them 6." Touchdown Tennessee. So 6 points per score for the Campbellsville Tigers. By the way, Trenton Cutright, first play after a fumble recovery, gave the Tigers a ball to start the second half. He had a 12-yard rush, came right off the bench, and then a 7-yard touchdown pass. He had 6 completions on the day, went 6 of 7 for 58 yards and 2 touchdown passes. So Campbellsville had numerous 6-point plays. Cutright had 6 completions. There were 6 passing touchdowns to 6 different receivers on the day as well. And get this, for Campbellsville, well, when you're up 61-7, you can afford to distribute the ball a little bit, not only to the receivers, but to who throws the ball. There were 6 different players for Campbellsville who completed a pass. Of course, Jet Engel, Trenton Cutright, we talked about them. Max Ward, who also found his way to Campbellsville from Kentucky Christian, as Jet Engel did. And we're going to go ahead and start with the first cough drop of the new season, or at least of the night. Justice Law, who completed a pass. Peyton Cope completed a pass. And Arturo Lopez completed a pass. And I think this is really pretty cool, too, because Lopez, he's the punter. Campbellsville didn't punt. So Coach Russell had to get him into the game in some facet, and he throws a pass and completes that as well. Oh, he had a tackle too. So 6 different players completed a pass for Campbellsville. And by the way, Trenton Cutright, who is now the backup quarterback, who came into the contest in the second half and helped to lead the Tigers to the win, he wears the number 6. There you go. Thomas, 0-4 now on the season. Ave Maria, 36. Fort Lauderdale, 12. Ave Maria is 4-0 all-time against Fort Lauderdale. Logan Howard, 9 for 14 passing for 105 passing yards and 1 touchdown. All right. Let's see here. Tool Envy. Bluey's pretty solid. Just have to throw that on there. The Vikings take care of business at Baker. Yes, they do, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. Sean, glad you are on with us tonight as well. We continue on through the Week 4 games. We mentioned another team from the Mid-South Conference. How about Cumberland? Cumberland with a 21-17 victory over Pikeville. Pikeville may be the best 0-3 team in all of the NAIA right now. Pikeville was up 10-0 at the half. Looked like the Bears might be heading for their first victory of the season. Then up 17-0, and then 21 straight from Cumberland. Chaz Hunter picked up the loose ball and returned it 56 yards to the Pikeville 3-yard line. Then Jacob Cornejo took it in for the game-winning score in the fourth quarter. Chaz Hunter, one of 3 players for the Phoenix, with 9 tackles on the day. Jacob Cornejo, 16 carries for 65 yards. He had the rushing touchdown that proved to be the game winner. Xavier Malone, wow. Another big day for him. 31 of 41 passing. When you complete more than 75% of your passes and they let you throw it for more than 40 times, you're having a pretty good day. 271 passing yards. Here's the problem. No touchdowns thrown. No interceptions, but no touchdowns thrown. He did have a rushing touchdown, but he was sacked 3 times on the day. Kentucky Christian falls 45-28 to FCS Morehead State. Morehead State 7-0 all-time in the series. Jackson Wasek, 15 of 25 passing for 243 yards, 3 touchdowns and no picks. Chase Hall for the Knights had 11 tackles, including 1 tackle for loss. Point goes to 0-4 on the season, falling to USCAA opponent Clayton State, 25-14 in the first meeting between those two. Bluefield falls to an FCS opponent as well. The Rams dropped 76-3 at the hands of Presbyterian. The Presbyterian Blue Hose, by the way. Not the White Sox, not the Red Stockings. They're the Blue Hose. And they're 4-0 on the season, too, in FCS. Lindsey Wilson, this one of the big matchups of the weekend. 35-27, Lindsey Wilson. 4-0 now on the season. Reinhardt, 1-3, and right there with Tabor as being quality teams that their record just doesn't seem to reflect that right now. Lindsey Wilson trailed 24-14 at the half. First time since 2019 that the Blue Raiders have come back for a win after trailing double digits in the second half. Tate Rice continues to shine for Lindsey Wilson. 18 of 29 passing, 221 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Did not throw an interception. Stephen Mack with 8 carries for 36 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns as well. And Devontae Saunders with the other score on the day for Lindsey Wilson. 22 carries, 156 rushing yards. That includes a 62-yard touchdown run that proved to be the insurance score for Lindsey Wilson with 5.5 left in the fourth quarter. Reinhardt led the way in total offense, 436 to 399, and Taylor Jackson put points on the board, a little bit less than 50% completion, 10 of 22 passing for 171 yards, 1 passing touchdown through 2 picks, had 2 rushing touchdowns on the day as well. But Lindsey Wilson, 4-0 now, and right up there with Campbellsville at the lead in the Mid-South Conference. No conference games having been played. That's all about to change. Indiana Wesleyan, 28. Olivet Nazarene, 27. Indiana Wesleyan won this game last year 69-0. It was a 69-point spread. This year it is a 1-point spread, and there is no question that Coach Mitchell's team came ready to play. The Tigers got on the board first and built up a 21-7 lead. Then 27-14 was the lead. And that really is the point where the Wildcats defense kicked in. A block extra point attempt on that final touchdown, and that kept the lead from being 28-14. And, man, how many times do you go back and look at a missed extra point and think this might come back to haunt you? And that's exactly what it did. The Wildcats held Olivet Nazarene after rallying to take the lead. Then they held them on downs. Then they get everything together, and the defense just hangs on in the final moments. 2 second-half touchdowns and a Brock Thompson interception to seal the deal, 28-27. Arjun Lothi, 20 of 34 passing for 316 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Braxton Myers, 5 catches, caught 1 of those touchdown passes. He had 121 receiving yards on the day. For Olivet Nazarene, Christian Dew Reed, in his time in the game, 14 of 27 passing for 277 passing yards. Excuse me, threw 3 touchdowns and no picks, but he was out of the contest at about the midpoint in the third quarter, and there's word that he had cramps in the fourth quarter. Caleb Garner comes in for him and tries to keep things going, but couldn't put any more points on the board. A struggling afternoon, and Olivet Nazarene falls again by 1 point to Indiana Wesleyan. St. Francis, the Fighting Saints, 42. Lawrence Tech, 28. The Blue Devils still not with a win this season. St. Francis picks up its first victory of 2025, scoring 14 points in the first quarter, 14 in the second quarter, and 14 in the third. Carl Bew, who saw time at quarterback behind Sam Tumulty in 2023, saw some limited action in 2024, and he had a shining day on Saturday. 3 carries, 37 rushing yards, including a 37 rushing yard touchdown score to open the scoring. He also had a 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Nathan Mall, the quarterback now, 13 of 20 passing, 251 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. For Lawrence Tech, Ryan Schuster, who earned the starting job at the opening of the season, pretty solid day, even in a loss. 28 of 46 passing, 369 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. Jalen Johnson, 6 catches for 121 yards also for the Blue Devils and caught one of those touchdown passes. And Schuster's numbers, they're pretty solid. And this is going to be one of those things that's a theme over the course of the rest of the evening. A player with solid numbers, but just not room in tonight's top 5 performances. Schuster's numbers are pretty solid too, as is someone from our next game. St. Xavier picks up its first win of the season over the Madonna Crusaders. 21-7 the final score. And read that weather was an issue in this game, but it was not an issue for Taj McClellan. The Cougar set a St. Xavier record with 3 interceptions in the contest. St. Xavier went up 21-0 at the half and held Madonna to a negative 34 net rushing yards on the day. Matthew Opat, the freshman from Munster, Indiana, quarterback with his first collegiate start, able to come out for St. Xavier with 18 of 30 passing, 60% there, 147 passing yards through a touchdown and a pick as well. Madonna had signs of life. Kwame Miller with a 57-yard touchdown reception from Keel Watson, but that was about all for the Crusaders on Saturday. Taj McClellan, again, 3 picks on the day. I'm going to mention this one, Ferris State at home over Rio Grande. Ferris State, the defending national champions in Division II, now 4-0 on the season. They've won 3 of the last 4 national championships in NCAA Division II, taking on an opponent in the NAIA who is not only an NAIA opponent, but in its first season with a football team. 76-0 was the final. Ferris State has now won 18 consecutive games, and that includes a victory over an NAIA program that is now 0-3 since 1950. Ferris State ran back the opening kickoff 92 yards and took the lead 14 seconds in. And Ferris State scored in not every way imaginable, but tried. The Bulldogs scored a passing touchdown. They scored on rushing touchdown. They scored on a kickoff return for a touchdown, a fumble return for a touchdown, an interception return for a touchdown, and blocked a field goal and returned that for a touchdown as well. Ferris State 76, Rio Grande nothing. And we move on to those Vikings that Sean was talking about. 24-7 the victory. And Sean mentioned the O-line in that game. Well, O-line was able to take care of business and give Jackson Waring opportunity to do what he does best. Grandview, 256 to 149, the rushing yards advantage in this one. Lots of players able to run the ball. And you know what, Sean? When you have an offensive line that's taking care of business, not only for the passing game, opening up holes for the running game as well, that's what helps Grandview go to 3-0 on the year. And for Baker, 0-3, and that is a shocking number. The Vikings, Bryant Williams Jr. from Burlington, Iowa, 11 carries, 101 rushing yards, 2 receptions for 89 yards, and a receiving touchdown as well. Truman Julesgaard starting to right the ship, but it's not enough to help the Wildcats get the victory. 16 of 25 passing, 114 passing yards, but did not throw a touchdown in this one. He did, however, have 15 carries for 110 yards. So we'll see if we see more of Julesgaard using his legs in this one. Had 1 rushing touchdown. And this is very interesting. This is a good point, Tool Envy. Baker had first and goal, the 1 foot line, and Grandview stopped them from scoring. Championship football on display. And you're exactly right. Thank you for bringing that one up too, because that is a big deal. One of the things about Grandview that we try to promote here is the fact that the Vikings have a very solid defense as well. The offense gets lots of headlines, not unlike what Friends does, but that's a solid defense for Grandview too. Graceland, hopefully this one will bring Charles into the mix. Graceland 41, Missouri Baptist 14. Spartans have gone up against a couple of tough teams from the Heart North, Graceland being one of those. 2-1 now on the season. There was a lightning delay, and it was ultimately called with 12 minutes and 54 seconds left in the fourth quarter. The damage was done. Graceland on top of this one by 27 after the final score. C.J. Brooks, 18 for 28 passing, 318 yards through the air, 5 touchdowns through just the one pick. I'll talk about that in a second. 5 passing touchdowns to 4 different receivers. He also had 5 carries for 14 yards, too, and a rushing touchdown. And you know what? If you have some spare time, why don't you punt the ball, too, CJ? He did that. Had 2 punts, including one that was 53 yards and dropped inside the 20. Now, I go back to the interception, and I recognize you have to say it because it's there. But in perspective, when you heave one down the field to close out the half and it's picked off in the end zone, you're just trying to make something else happen. Well, that's the way it goes sometimes. So the other team gets that pick, but 6 touchdowns accounted for in this one for the Yellow Jackets. Aaron Bullock making some noise as well. Aaron Bullock III caught 6 of those tosses from Brooks for 124 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Javon Miner continues to open things up for the passing attack with his ground game, 14 carries, 113 rushing yards, and he had a receiving touchdown too. So, all right, Charles, there we go. Charles is here. Not just Charles. How about CJ? Congratulations, CJ. We may talk about you again at the very end of the broadcast tonight. Spoiler alert. Good to have you on board tonight. All right, lots more as we go on through. Graceland again with the victory and getting back in the winning track there. Benedictine talking about being on the winning track, 3-1, 45-10. The Ravens over the Pride from Clark. Benedictine now 6-0 all-time in this series. Jackson just keeps on improving day and day. Of course, this is Jackson Dooley. Coach Joel Osborne with the quote, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. I think Coach Osborne is sold on his quarterback there at Benedictine. Well, he's 17 of 27 passing for 422 yards through the air for Benedictine on Saturday. He threw 5 touchdowns, had an interception as well. And by the way, those 422 yards moved Jackson Dooley into first place in career passing yards for Benedictine, 7,961. He's really on pace. He may hit 5 digits before this season is over with. We'll continue to watch that for Jackson Dooley and Benedictine. Tanner Zimmerman, 3 catches, 155 yards receiving. One of those was for a touchdown. For Clark, Gustav Nordberg had the 1-yard rushing touchdown. That accounted for the 7 points of the 10 for Clark. Peru State, 64. Central Methodist, 43. The Eagles got their first victory of the season last week. It's a loss this week, but the two teams combined for 107 points. This is something we thought might happen in the McPherson Evangel game. That clearly did not happen. We'll get to that game a little bit later on. Peru State, 56 points in the 3 previous games, 64 points in this one. And the offense, and we talked about this a little bit on Thursday, the offense for Peru State looked a little sketchy. It did not look sketchy on Saturday. Between the two teams, there were 17 scores in this game. Not only that, and this one's a new one for me. Maybe you've seen this one before. I've seen it where 2 extra point attempts were run back for 2 points the other direction, but not from one from each team. Each team scored 2 points by returning a failed extra point in this one. There was also an interception return, too. 17 scores in this game, 1,140 yards of total offense between the two schools. Again, numbers we expected from the McPherson Evangel game and didn't get. Peru State, 655 to 485, the advantage there. C.J. Dixon had himself a day. By the way, that's been a theme here in the Hart Conference with C.J. Brooks and with Jackson Dooley. How about C.J. Dixon? 30 of 54 passing, 536 passing yards, 7 passing touchdowns, threw 3 picks as well. Oh, and he rushed the ball, carried the ball 10 times for 101 yards. He accounted for 637 yards of total offense. Congratulations, C.J. Dixon. Peru State's Bryant Thomas caught 6 passes for 146 yards and had a receiving touchdown as well. Nathaniel Ortega led the way on defense. 4 tackles, had 2 interceptions, and one of them was a 32-yard pick six for Central Methodist Jordan Guile. Not a bad day for Guile. 14 of 28 passing, 279 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns. He threw 2 interceptions, 5 interceptions combined between the 2 starting quarterbacks in this one. But on a day when everything else is going well for other people, including your counterpart for Peru State, those 5 passing touchdowns just didn't quite measure up. Again, 64-40 through the final. Bobcats are 3-1 on the year. St. Ambrose gets its first win of the season, and it's a big-time win over William Woods. The Bees are now 1-3. The Owls are 0-4. And it was an 82-5 final. Here's another one. And again, college football, it is my favorite sport to watch. And I know if you all are watching this tonight, or maybe you're watching the on-demand option, college football is really pretty cool. I have never seen a final score of 82-5. And it didn't even include a safety. There we go. Second consecutive week, by the way, that St. Ambrose has converted a field goal on the final play of the game. 82 points, second most in program history, finishing short of the 95 points that the 1912 St. Ambrose Fighting Bees put up. How about that? You're going back for 123 years for the most points, and they did it against the Tri-City Indies. I know we're dropping some real information here. Also, the third largest margin of victory for St. Ambrose. Well, it's a 77-point margin of victory there. Alec Ponder. And Alec Ponder was putting up numbers that were putting him in the same category with Xavier Malone. I mean, prior to today, Alec Ponder's numbers were fantastic, but his team hadn't won a game. That's where Xavier Malone is still right now. But Ponder, they get the win on Saturday. He threw 5 touchdowns, no picks on the afternoon. All in all, that was pretty much in the first half, too, because he got a break after that. Tyler Wilson, the punter for St. Ambrose, punted only one time, but really he didn't. St. Ambrose wound up not having an official punt in this game because when Wilson punted, William Woods came across and committed a roughing the kicker penalty, which gave St. Ambrose an automatic first down, and Wilson's punt didn't track. How about that? Jordan Price, by the way, I mentioned there was no safety in this game. So how did William Woods get 5 points? There was a field goal, and there was also Jordan Price, who returned a failed extra point attempt, 97 yards, and got 2 points for his team. Those failed extra point attempts, they are just dominating week 4 in the NAI. Missouri Valley, 48. Culver Stockton, 41. This one back and forth. Missouri Valley went up 20-0 at the 12:51 mark in the first quarter. The Vikings scored on the first offensive play, a 75-yard touchdown pass, and then returned an interception 25 yards on Culver Stockton's first possession of the game. And then after the second touchdown, Culver Stockton fumbled the ensuing kickoff. The Vikings scored again 2 plays later to go up 20-0. But Culver Stockton fought back. Actually had a lead 41-40 before it was all said and done. Missouri Valley gets a TD with 1:48 to go in the fourth quarter. That proved to be the game winner. The Vikings, under Coach LaQuinton Black in his first season, now 2-1 on the year. Octavius Griffin and had 11 tackles for the game. Tamel Staples, by the way, 14 of 21 passing, 239, 2 touchdowns, no picks on the afternoon. For Culver Stockton, again, another quarterback in a losing effort that still had pretty good numbers. Liam Thornton, 30 of 44 passing, 328 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. And ultimately, by the way, it was a pick 6 that made the difference. He threw the interception that was returned for a touchdown on the Wildcats' first possession of the game, and it winds up being a 7-point differential when it's all said and done. Missouri Valley, 48-41 over Culver Stockton. William Penn, 34. Mid-America Nazarene, 31. We talk about this game in the Bet to Barn segment, back and forth game. William Penn, 483 to 259 total offensive yards advantage in the game. And the Statesmen are now 4-0. First time that William Penn has been 4-0 since 2012. They went 7-0 that year to start the season, and actually it was the last time they made the playoffs. Sterling Ramsey, 15 of 30 passing, 255 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, threw 3 picks as well. He had a rushing touchdown too. Destin Lauren, 33 carries, 178 rushing yards. He continues to carry the rock for the Statesman. He didn't have a rushing touchdown, but he had a receiving touchdown on the day with 3 catches. Samuel Gonzalez for Mid-American Nazarene, he led the way with 6 catches for 79 yards, and he had a receiving touchdown. Hastings, 42. Waldorf, nothing. The Broncos are now 2-2 on the season. Carson Kudlacek, 9 of 16 passing, 180 yards, threw a passing touchdown and threw an interception as well. For Waldorf, they've been shut out 3 times in 4 games this season. Northwestern gets back on the winning side. 2-1 now on the year, 23-0. Another shutout there for Northwestern. They've won 9 straight in the series against Dakota Wesleyan, and the defense has pitched a shutout 2 times in 3 games this season. Colby Duncan with his first start, 9 of 23 passing for 97 yards, had a touchdown, and he also carried the ball 17 times for 156 yards on the night. Dakota Wesleyan, just 73 yards of total offense. The defense kicked in for the Red Raiders. Morningside, 55. Midland, 37. 92 points combined between these two. Morningside got 21 points in the fourth quarter to really seal the deal. We talked about this one in our Bet the Barn segment too, and we'll mention it at the end. Zach Chevalier, 22 of 33, 67% passing, 5 touchdowns thrown, just 1 interception on the day. Drew Sellen had 3 of those touchdown catches. 10 catches on the day, 130 yards, day at the office for Drew Sellen. And Max Huff, we've talked about the triplets for Morningside. Huff had 17 carries for 104 yards rushing and a rushing touchdown too. For Midland, Zach Congalton and Brody Johnson combined for 377 passing yards, just not quite enough. Kevin Adams, 9 catches for 105 yards receiving and 1 touchdown catch, but again, not enough on the day. Chevalier threw 5 touchdown passes, again, 3 to Sellen. Keep that 5 touchdown passes number in mind as we get to our Bet the Barn segment. Briar Cliff over Mount Marty, 34-20. The battle for the Catholic Cup. This one under the lights in September, back and forth. The problem with this one for the Lancers, after starting the season 3-0, in the back and forth scoring, Mount Marty got just field goals in their first 2 scores, where Briar Cliff picked up touchdowns, and the Lancers really needed those points, as it proved out a little bit later on. Brock Saya continuing to roll and lead the way for the Chargers, 17 of 24 passing, 191 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. He found Stephen Whiting for both of those touchdown passes. Whiting, the strong tight end who gets stronger all the time, 2 catches, both of them for touchdowns. So a big day for him. And the defense kicked in for Briar Cliff, holding Rugby Riken to just 11 of 22 passing for 96 yards through 1 touchdown, and he was picked off as well. Briar Cliff, 34-20. And the Chargers and the Lancers now both 3-1 on the season. The GPAC schedule does not get any easier, but we move from there to the KCAC. St. Mary picks up its first win of the season and its first win of the series. 48-19 over Avila. This series has now gone to 8 games, and Avila had won the previous 7 meetings between the two. Eric Covington has had great numbers all year long for a team that prior to Saturday was winless. 15 of 29 passing, 243 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and carried the ball 7 times for 23 yards. And Cameron Smith also has been strong in that Spires backfield. 13 carries for 60 yards on Saturday and had 3 rushing touchdowns for St. Mary. Michael Gazana, 5 catches for 141 yards receiving. He had a touchdown catch as well. For Avila, Davian Bankston, 7 catches, 80 yards. That was the high point for the Eagles. Bethany, now 2-2, the Swedes. And Swede Nation steps in every now and again. If you're watching now, your Swedes got another win, 34-26 over Sterling. Jesse Caver, the third, 15 of 26 passing for 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He had 2 rushing touchdowns as well. And for Sterling, how about these numbers? Jaden Briscoe, 26 of 45 passing for 348 yards, threw 2 touchdowns, but threw also 2 to the other team. But he had 2 rushing touchdowns too. The Swedes come away with an 8-point win over Sterling. Southwestern 61, Ottawa 10. The Mound Builders coming back off the loss last week. They moved to 3-1 on the year, and Jamie Odom did it in high style. 14 of 23 passing for 270 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 6 carries for 74 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Odom accounted for 6 touchdowns on the day. And where were we? Skipped past that a little bit. There we are. Matthew Holthusen, 5 catches for 131 yards receiving. He had a receiving touchdown, and he continues to lead the way for the Builders. For Ottawa, it was a strong defensive effort last week. Ethan Yinger with 11 tackles for the Braves to lead the way. He had 2 tackles for loss as well. D'Angelo, I have not talked about Arkansas Baptist yet, and I don't know if you're going to like the Arkansas Baptist score in this one, but we'll get to them in the Sooner Athletic Conference here in just a moment. McPherson remains undefeated, 4-0, 17-10 on the road in Nixa at Evangel, and the Valor fall to 3-1. And there were 2 things in our Bet the Barn segment that we talked about that we'll get to a little bit later on. And wow, the line was high on those totals, and it did not match up. No score in this one in the first quarter. Evangel up 3-0 at the half, 10-0 midway through the third quarter. McPherson, the big football news of the week for McPherson was the fact that the Bulldogs are adding women's flag football in 2026. No, that's not the big news of the week. The big news of the week is that Jaleel Brown had 21 carries for 131 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. And Kenneth Ray, who had 7 tackles on the day, also picked up a fumble and ran it in for the score to start the fourth quarter for 22 yards out. That proved to be the game winner, a defensive score for the Bulldogs, and they go on to a 17-10 victory. Reed Potts for Evangel and Eric Williams combined for 26 rushing yards. It was a struggle of a day for the Valor, even though they did lead the way in total offense outright. 319 yards of total offense for Evangel, just 244 for McPherson. Not quite enough there, and the Bulldogs go to 17 and with a 17-10 win. Kansas Wesleyan also undefeated at 4-0 in KCAC play, 38-7 over Bethel. Henry Ostad, 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns on the day, and DeHeaven Domina, 18 carries for 101 rushing yards for Bethel. Houston Heron, 12 carries, 47 yards, and a rushing touchdown. The Coyotes continue to roll for Coach Matt Middleton in his first year at the head coach. Let's go over to the Frontier Conference now. Mayville State, how about those Comets? 21-17. And Roll Mets, they have rolled to a 3-1 record now as they traveled a long distance to Redding, California to get a win over the Red Hawks. 21-17. Mayville State with 395 yards of total offense. 344 of it came through the ground game. There were 11 different players who carried the ball for the Comets. That includes Isaiah Smith, had 8 carries for 76 yards and a touchdown. For Simpson, it's Caleb Anderson and John Moreno at the helm again. Neither one of them able to break out, though. Ezekiel Anderson, however, did have 9 carries for 93 yards and a rushing touchdown for Simpson. The Red Hawks, are 0-4 now on the season. The Comets are 3-1. Dakota State moves to 2-1 with a 44-27 victory in the first meeting between the Trojans and the Firestorm of Arizona Christian. A long way to travel for Dakota State, and they are able to pick up the win. Trey Heddick back at the helm. 21 of 31 passing, 338 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for Heddick in his first start this season. Dakota State had 21 points in the fourth quarter as they blew it open there. Preston Iverson, 21 carries for 165 yards on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns. Victor Boggs Jr., 5 catches, 114 receiving yards. He had a catch for a score as well. Josh Bell for Arizona Christian, above the 50% mark passing at 14 of 25 for 157 passing yards, threw 2 touchdowns, but also threw 2 interceptions. Carroll has now won 11 straight over Dickinson State as the Blue Hawks pick up their first loss of the season. Both teams now 2-1. Carroll 35, Dickinson State 7. First time these two teams have met in 13 years. And for Carroll, Caden Hewitt continues to shine. 20 of 24 passing, 83% passing completion rate on the day, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. And it was a balanced attack for Carroll. 243 passing yards, 241 rushing yards on the day. For Dickinson State, Samaj Clark with 7 catches for 62 yards. He had the lone score on the day for the Blue Hawks. Carroll, can you imagine a team beating Dickinson State 11 consecutive times? It's tough to imagine, but that's where the mark is now. Montana Western 35-7 over Rocky Mountain. Bulldogs 2-1 now on the year. And the Battling Bears are 0-3 on the season. Michael Palandri with some big numbers. 29 of 43 passing, 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. He also had a rushing touchdown. Eli Norse, 12 catches, 148 yards receiving. He had a touchdown catch. And for the Battling Bears, we mentioned Darius Haskin more than once. We mentioned him again. 6 catches, 121 yards receiving, 2 touchdown catches as well. Montana Tech, the Diggers. How about those Diggers from Butte? I'll tell you how about them. They're 4-0 now on the year. 37-14 on the road at Southern Oregon. And the Raiders fall to 1-2 now on the season. Jarrett Wilson has taken over that starting quarterback position. He went 15 of 20 passing for 321 yards through the air, 4 touchdowns, no picks, had 12 carries for 50 rushing yards as well. He found Levi Torgerson for all of his touchdown passes. 8 catches on the day for Torgerson. 4 of them were touchdowns, 222 receiving yards. What a day. Southern Oregon's Gunnar Yates did not play in this one, but Dom Montiel, we've talked about him, 25 of 45 passing, 280 yards, through 2 touchdowns and no picks on the day. Valley City State moves to 3-1 with a win over Eastern Oregon. The first meeting between the two, and it was a barn burner, which finished with a 3-0 score. The teams combined to go 11 for 37 on third down. There were 5 turnovers, and they combined for 365 yards of total offense. If you like defense, you came to the right place if you went to watch this one in LeGrand. Valley City State's Walker Brondos had the lone score on the day for either team, a 24-yard field goal with 2:42 remaining in the third quarter. We're starting to wind down our Week 4 slate as we are wrapping things up from the Frontier Conference with this one this one's in Caldwell. College of Idaho, 3-0 now on the year, 38-16 with the win over MSU Northern. And the College of Idaho Yotes are now 12-0 all-time against the Lights. 519 yards of total offense to 218 yards of total offense for College of Idaho, 292 of them on the ground, a balanced pass run. Caden Young and Chase Viemeyer split time for College of Idaho. Young, the starter, and he continues to shine. For MSU Northern, 2 touchdown passes from Kendall O'Neill to Isaiah Woodley for 78 and 11 yards, respectively. Langston, 1-3 on the year at Texas College. As we move to the Sooner Athletic Conference, Langston, 35-28. Langston has now won 21 consecutive games in this series. Texas College scored first, and then Langston scored the next 28. Aiden Hooper, 13 of 30 passing for 125 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Texas Wesleyan loses to UT Rio Grande Valley in the extreme far south of Texas, 61-13. Traveled a long way to pick up a loss against an FCS school. The Vaqueros now 4-0 on the year. The Rams now 1-2. For Texas Wesleyan, Jaden Jones had a 65-yard pick 6 on the day. Hardin Simmons, D3 Hardin Simmons, 52-7 over Louisiana Christian. And the Wildcats went to Abilene for an out-of-conference and out-of-affiliation game. Bryce Perkins to Omarius Davis for 2 touchdowns, 30-yard and a 3-yard variety. OUAZ over Oklahoma Panhandle State. The Spirit, 56-10 over the Aggies. Luke Giron, 14 of 32 passing for 279 passing yards, 3 touchdowns and no picks. Jalen McGee with 19 carries for 106 yards, had a rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown on the day. For the Aggies, 3 players with 8 tackles apiece. Arkansas Baptist is 2-2 now on the year. And D'Angelo, I get to Arkansas Baptist on this one. Had a couple of wins, but came up short in this one, hosting Nelson in Little Rock. 99 points between the two, 59-40. The Lions over the Buffaloes in this one as Nelson picks up its first win of the year. Nelson opened the game with a safety, and then Quentin Jones had 10 carries for 196 yards rushing and a rushing touchdown. Judah Holtzclaw carrying the ball again, and this time getting some points on the board. 11 carries, 67 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. He also had 2 passing touchdowns on the day against the Buffaloes. For Arkansas Baptist, Tyler Strickland, 16 for 36 passing for 426 yards at home. 4 passing touchdowns for the Buffaloes through 2 interceptions as well. And Jeremiah Rice, big day for Arkansas Baptist, 3 catches for 165 receiving yards, 55 yards per catch for Rice, 2 receiving touchdowns there. But the Buffaloes ultimately come up short in this one, 59-40. But you're right, D'Angelo. Arkansas Baptist 2-2. They're coming along this year. And the final game on the docket, Wayland Baptist goes to Division III Howard Payne and comes up with a 3-point victory. First win of the season for the Pioneers. They're heading for their home opener late in September against Texas College. Damon Ford, 23 carries for 68 yards and a rushing touchdown. And Leo, let's pull this up here really quickly as we start to wind down our broadcast. Leo caught the 4th quarter of William Penn's win over Mid-America Nazarene. Fun quarter. Yeah, absolutely. It was a fun quarter. And you have to love what Coach Benavidez is doing now. Again, this is a program that has its first 4-0 start in 13 years, the last time they made the playoffs. It's year 3 for Coach Benavidez, and it's kind of time. After 4-7 seasons in each of the previous 2 years, they've matched their win total now from both of the last 2 seasons. So it's time to pick things up and go. All right. We move to our top 5 performances, and there were so many different performances to choose from. It was difficult to pick 5, but we here at Midwest Sportsnet did just that. And here are our winners for the week. There we go. For Morningside, how about this one? Zach Chevalier and Drew Sellen. 5 touchdown passes for Chevalier, threw 1 interception on the day, 67% passing completion. Big day for him. And Drew Sellen, 10 more catches, 3 more receiving touchdowns. He is having a year for Morningside. I have to know that he's there, and he's still able to catch the ball as well. So a big afternoon for Morningside and an 18-point victory, 55 points on the board for the Mustangs. How about Southwestern's Jamie Odom? Accounted for 6 touchdowns on the day, 4 passing, 2 rushing, 270 passing yards, 74 rushing yards, 344 yards of total offense for Jamie Odom. Big day for Southwestern as they pick up a 51-point win. C.J. Brooks, another great day for him, and Graceland needed it. 41-14 the win. The Yellow Jackets pick up their 2nd victory of the season. Big day, and Brooks threw 5 passing touchdowns to 4 different receivers, also had a rushing touchdown, also had 2 punts, including dropping 1 inside the 20. 318 passing yards on the day for Brooks, a stellar outing for the D1 transfer. CJ Dixon. Wow. Have yourself a day, CJ Dixon. 536 passing yards, 7 passing touchdowns. Threw 3 picks too, but it's the 7 passing touchdowns that were big. He had 10 carries for 101 yards, 637 yards of total offense on the day for C.J. Dixon. And the combination of Wilson and Torgerson. Wilson had a pretty good day. Torgerson's day was even better, and we just felt like we had to put both of them in here for this one and let the world see. Wilson, who has taken over the starting role for the Diggers with 321 passing yards, 4 touchdowns thrown, no picks. Torgerson, 222 receiving yards and 4 touchdown catches on the day. A big day for him. So that's where we are. Top 5 performances for the week 4 in the NAIA in 2025. All right, so let's see. One more here. Yeah, we had our Bet the Barn segment on Thursday, and we had a few things on the line to talk about. So what did we mention first? Well, we gave the opportunity. It was a totals bet, over-under on the Mid-America Nazarene and William Penn game, which Leo caught the end of. The over-under on that one was 68.5 points. Now, a number of you all played along, and if you want to, come along on Thursday night during the live show. Some people actually did comment and give their bets as well. Leo, you were one of those. I appreciated that. But if you're watching us live, you can join in and comment and let us know in the chat what you think. What would you bet the barn on? Would you go one way or the other here? I took the under in this one, and I was proved to be right. Was proven to be right. It was 34-31, 65 points total. So there you go. All right, that was our Bet the Barn. Let's go. We had a prop bet here. Zach Chevalier, he was averaging 3.5 touchdowns thrown per game. So would he go over or under those 3.5 touchdowns thrown? I took the over on this one. A number of you all took the over on this one, and you were right with that one. Chevalier with 5 touchdown passes on the day against Midland on defense, and it was just quite an outing for him. All right, Charles took the under on all 4. Well, you're going to be right on 3 of those. You bet my barn. Okay, let's see. Charles is betting my barn and a turkey leg, and you won on 3 of the 4. You didn't get the under on Chevalier there. All right. This one game, we had 2 different totals bets on. Let's start with the points. McPherson and Evangel were scoring big time. And we dropped the line a little bit to see if we could get some action on the over, which I took as well. Dave took the over as well. No, you're exactly right, Dave. I took the over on this one. I thought this could be a high-scoring game. It absolutely was nothing of the sort. The 64.5 points got some action, but it was totally wrong. Combined 27 points in McPherson's 17-10 victory. And the same thing on this one. We had the opportunity on the totals to go over under 814.5 yards of total offense. The 2 teams were combining for well more than 1,000 yards of total offense. Wow, the defense has kicked in big time in this one. And I took the over. I was so wrong on this one. They combined for 563 yards of total offense. So anyway, if you bet your imaginary barn, as I bet my imaginary barn on these, well, I was 2 for 2 on the week. Some of you guys were pretty close. Charles was 3 out of 4. Not bad, Charles. I don't think anyone got all 4. I think 3 out of 4. I think that was the best, Charles. So I think you won. So you got the barn and the turkey leg, and you're eating high on the hog, resting in the shade in your own barn, or my barn, as you've put out there. All right. We had a lot to talk about today. It was all great. A shout out to Pat Strathman, who stopped by, the voice of the Friends Falcons. He was here at the outset, which was an hour ago. So we've had a fun night tonight talking about the barn, talking about the top 5 performances, just talking in general. It has been a blast getting to visit with you, as it always is. And when I'm done and I go upstairs and talk with Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet, she'll always ask me, how'd it go? And I'll tell her, just like tonight, man, it was so great to get to visit with everybody. It was so nice to get to talk to people in the chat. It was so nice to get to talk about NAIA football and talk about the season that's now the regular season about a third of the way over at this point in time. Man, it goes by quickly. It really does. To do all the things that we get to do, it's just a lot of fun. So I will tell you that on Thursday, we'll drop one of the goals for the channel for the upcoming months. I've kind of teased it a little bit, but it can only be done with your help. And the channel is growing. It really is. It's experienced a lot of growth in the last 3 or 4 weeks. That's due to you. I'm very thankful to get to spend time visiting with you all the time. And man, I've had these headphones in. I haven't talked to Pat in like an hour. I didn't need to have the headphones in that long. It's been fun to get to visit with you all, and I realize me with the mic and you with the chat and the comments and all that, but I believe in this channel, and I believe it has a lot of good to get to do and a lot more good to get to do, and it can be done with your help. So we'll talk about a goal on Thursday night. We'll talk about week 5 on Thursday night. We'll have more Bet the Barn lines to talk about, some prop bets and total bets and all of that for our imaginary barns that we will bet. And who knows, we may have a few more things to talk about on Thursday night. So I invite you to tune in for that one. It'll be live at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 6 o'clock if you're watching us out on the East Coast and talking about, on the West Coast and talking about some of those Frontier Conference games. Robert, man, and you bet a few things on our Bet the Barn segment as well. So I'm glad that you're at least here tonight. Shout out to Robert. And you know what, Robert? We're going to actually talk a little bit of Concordia football on Thursday night. So we'll do that too. The Bulldogs will be back in action on Saturday next week. So much to talk about. It's a lot of fun, and honestly, it's a lot of fun because of you. And I mean that. Seriously mean that. You are great. Our community is great. The neighborhood that we have online here is fantastic, and it's just getting better all the time. So I want to wrap things up here. Big day of college football on Saturday. That was a lot of fun. I will tell you, and let me get rid of that banner there. I will tell you that I didn't spend the entire time watching college football. Having a grandson who also is a namesake, little Samuel Joseph, got the Joseph in there too. So thank you, Jenna, for putting that name in there. You got to spend time with the grandson. I got to see all 4 grandkids this week. They were all at the birthday party. That was a lot of fun. And you never take those things for granted. And I praise God every day for a beautiful and wonderful wife whom I love dearly, and for 5 wonderful children, and for 4 wonderful grandchildren. And I praise God for you all too. So anyway, all right, Robert, thank you very much for being a part of tonight. Charles, Dave, thanks for watching. You had the over. Dave, I know we'll have Morningside back in the props bets as well. Leo, thanks for watching, and thanks for putting in the comments section your bets too. D'Angelo, Arkansas Baptist is growing. Tool Envy, thank you for your comments tonight. Sean, thanks for being online tonight as well. And Matt, the Mets are continuing to roll, so continue to cheer on those Mayville State Comets. I think it's time. I think it's officially time. Pat Strathman, thanks for being on the show tonight. God bless you. And listen to him talk about the Friends Falcons. Big game coming up next week against Evangel. And I think that's it. All right. God bless you all. We'll have the outro in next week. We have some new people who are members, and feel free to become a member too. Join the channel. We'll put your name in the outro too, so you can people can see that you're supporting the channel too. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. God bless you all. Have a fantastic night, and I will see you live again for sure on Thursday night.